We are in Revelation chapter 12. Just as a recap, and these are things that I've said many times, and I try to say them nearly every week. And so I just put it on a slide. Revelation is a revelation. It is not a mystery. The first readers understood the symbols, just like we understand so many symbols in our life today. Revelation is a book written to people undergoing a persecution. It is a terrible, terrible persecution, and we're going to talk about that in the upcoming chapters. It was written to give them hope and to encourage them to be faithful until the end. If you don't get anything else out of these lessons, understand that Satan will be defeated. Understand God will win, and those that follow God will live with Him eternally. That's the underlying message of the Revelation, and something that we can also have hope in our lives. Where are we? We are continuing chapter 12. Look at your outline by Mr. Tinney. We've seen the first two visions. The second vision is a long vision, and we are down to chapter 12. We're looking at signs. There are three signs, and this is the third sign in Revelation. A sign is just an extraordinary wonder. There are 7 personages. And remember, the seals are broken. When that happens, it's a revelation. When the trumpets are blown, it is a warning. When the bowls of wrath are poured out, it is a punishment. And you'll be glad to know we've spelled bowls correctly this week. It's great being me. All right, Romans 12, we've got, that should say Revelation 12. I just started with R and Romans came out. It's great being me. That should say Revelation 12, but I've looked at it, I bet 100 times, and it's just now, see that it's wrong. Revelation 12, there's 4 main characters. The woman is the people of God. The people of God before the cross and the people of God after the cross. So she is a symbol that changes meaning, actually, while we're talking about it. And so that's kind of interesting. The dragon, very clearly, verse 9, is going to be Satan. The male child, of course, is Jesus Christ. And, of course, Satan tried to destroy Jesus as the dragon was ready to destroy the male child. And the rest of her children, that's you and me, that's the church that's going to flee, and we'll come back to those in a minute. So there is the shifting symbol we talked about, and there's the dragon. This is all from last week. The dragon symbols, of course, verse 9 is Satan himself, and we talked about the meaning of each one of those symbols very briefly. Of course, Satan tries to devour the child as Satan tries to thwart the Messiah. And you just think how many times Satan tried to destroy the mission of Christ. And so the male child, and we looked at the Messianic Psalm there in Psalm 2, and the ruling with a rod of iron. That sounds really odd, but if you are a sheep and your shepherd has a rod of iron, you feel protected. The rod is not for the sheep, it's for the enemies of the sheep, for protection. So we get down to 12 and verse 6. And this is the woman that flees into the wilderness for 1,260 days. She has a place prepared by God in which she will be nourished for that time. And at this point, we should not have to ask, is this a literal 1,260 days? It is not, of course. And I've actually talked with guys, and asked them, go down the list, literal or figurative, and they'll say figurative, figurative, figurative. Oh, that number there, that's literal. And you just kind of squint your eyes and say, really? If it's in a whole bunch of figurative stuff, guess what? It's figurative, all right? So if you look at your cheat sheet, it is 1,260 days is the same as 3.5 years. I remember there's 30 months in a Jewish, 30 days in a month in the Jewish calendar. They use a lunar calendar. And so you count 30 days, 3.5 years, 42 months. All is the same thing, and it all equals 3.5. And so if you look on your cheat sheet for 3.5, what does that tell you? Well, it's going to be a troublesome time. It's going to be a time of hardship. So all of those things really mean the same thing. We're going to see all of those numbers come up again, the 42 months, the 1,260 days, the 3.5 years. They all mean the same thing, all right? And it just means it's a time of trial and hardship and testing. And we read about that beginning in Acts. You remember one of the main instigators was Paul, and before his conversion, he was working against the Christ. He was working against the Messiah. So that's the woman fleeing into the wilderness. She's going to be dispersed. The church is going to be dispersed. All right, Revelation 12, 7 through 9. Let's read that. And then we'll talk about what it isn't. All right, now war arose in heaven. Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was defeated. And there was no longer any place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come, for the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God, and they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. For they love not their lives even unto death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows his time is short. All right, let's talk about what this isn't. This is not a description of things that happened before the world began. Now, I don't think I realized this, but that idea comes from Milton's Paradise Lost. Look at what we just read. What's the time frame in these verses? Now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. When did that happen? That didn't happen before the world began. That happened at the cross. That's when Satan was defeated. This is talking about the cross. This is talking about victory. Now, think about this. It talks about a war going on. And I believe there are spiritual battles that we don't know anything about. And if you're interested, Joe Beam has a book. What's the name of that book? What's the name of it? Seen, Unseen. He describes this. And it will kind of raise the hair on the back of your neck some of the places. It connects a lot of dots. but it's fascinating. And you think about this war in heaven, and I thought about it. It's kind of like the war between light and dark. If you're in a pitch black room and you light just one candle, does that light have to work its way out? Now there's light, it's just like right now. That's how this war works. You know, the little kids sing "This Little Light of Mine," right? That's how this war is going to work. It's not going to be any battle at all. It's not like it. Boy, it's a squeaker. It's not like that. It's when you light that light, the darkness goes away. That's how this war is going to work. All right? So we don't have to worry who's going to win. Dualism is the idea that good and evil are equal and they're constantly battling. It's not like that at all. All right? God's going to win, and it's not even a contest. All right? So kind of think about that. All right. This is not a literal recounting of events. This is not a theology of fallen angels. This is not relating the origin of Satan. Satan existed long before this. These are events surrounding the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, described in apocalyptic language. And the war is not even close. All right? We watch a football game, it probably happens all the time. It gets down to the last second. It's not like that. It's like this is a blowout, and the other team didn't even show up. They brought in the cheerleading squad or something, you know, whatever, however you want to say that if you're a sports person, which I'm not. All right. So don't get too hung up on this. Use your cheat sheet. It's all symbols, all right? So let's look at, 10 through 12. We've got salvation, power, and the kingdom defeat of Satan was at the cross by the blood of the Lamb. And we see this so many times through Scripture. We are able to defeat Satan by the blood of the Lamb and by our testimony. Think about this. Who are the people that win this battle? It's not, the best looking. It's not, the people in all the famous movies or the people that sing, for our entertainment. It's none of that. It's people that see the blood of the Lamb and say, that's what I need. And that's our battle weapon. Always, God takes human reasoning and stands it on its head. And it's hard for us to just comprehend. And, we should not try to rely on our own understanding. Does it make sense? No, it does not. That God loved us enough to send his Son into the world to be our Redeemer, to buy us back. He made us and he bought us back, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. That's our only weapon. That's all we've got, and that's all we need. The blood of the Lamb and our testimony. And your testimony was a big deal at this time. You stand up and say, I'm a Christian. What does that imply? I don't believe in your Greek gods. I'm not going to sacrifice on these foreign altars. I'm not going to bow down to the emperor. I'm not going to do that. You could die just from saying that. And we're going to read later from a Roman historian, Pliny. He would give people 3 chances to recant their testimony. And after the 3rd time, they could be killed. Tough persecution. They were able to defeat Satan by the blood of the Lamb and their testimony. Wow. Satan's going to be turned away from heaven's gates, and so he's going to look. It's kind of like a bully. He can't beat this guy up, so what does he do? He turns around and looks for somebody weak he can go beat up. And that's what Satan's doing. Notice he is the accuser. Satan is the accuser. I accuse me all the time. I don't know about you. Inside my head, I remember all these things that I've done wrong. Do you do that? And I remind myself, this is Satan accusing me. And I'm helping Satan with my thoughts. He is the accuser. Put that in his place. Don't let Satan do that to you. You got to be wise to his tricks. And even though I know his tricks, it still hurts. And I wince sometimes. Are you like that? Anyway, let's read 10 through 12. Well, we've read it. He accuses them day and night. But how do we win? We claim the blood of the Lamb and with our testimony. Rejoice, O heaven, you who dwell in them. Woe to you, earth, and see, the devil has come down to you in great wrath. We're still here on the earth. Guess what? We're facing the devil's wrath every day. How do we defeat him? Only by the blood of the Lamb. So being turned away from heaven, he's going to look at the earth. Let's read beginning verse 13. And when the dragon saw he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of the great eagle, that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness, to the place where she is to be nourished for time and times and half a time. We're going to come back to that. The serpent poured water like a river from his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood. But the earth came down to help the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured from his mouth. Then the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And he stood on the sand of the sea. Then we're going to have 2 beasts, one rising up out of the sea and one rising up out of the land in chapter 13. So what's going on? Satan, he sees that he can't harm the woman. Who's the woman again? That's God's people before the covenant and after the covenant. He's chasing after God's people. He's barred from going into heaven. There's no place for him there. What's going on? So he turns his attention back to God's people that's left here on the earth. What is it again? Time and half a time. You got your cheat sheet? When you look that up, what's it going to say? See 3.5. It's probably all it says. I'm not sure what it says. Let's look. I want to say that's what it says. Time and half a time. Incompleteness, a system which cannot offer salvation. It's 3.5. And that's the same as 3.5, 42, all those together. It's going to be a time of troublesome time. And that's what this is. During this, it's a persecution. So when you see that time and half a time. So time is 1, time is 2, times is 2, and then half a time, that's 3.5. You add those 3 things up. And so again, 7, of course, is the perfect complete number. 3.5 is half of that, is the idea of that. And so you're going to come up with various combinations of that. It's just going to mean the same thing, that this is a troublesome time. And of course, this indeed was a awful time to be a Christian. So this flood, the water is commonly used symbolically, and there are the references for that. It comes up a lot. A flood of this, these are delusions in the form of lies, false impressions of invincible power, false religious teachings, false philosophies, false charges, and malicious reports intended to destroy the church. Do we deal with those things today? All the time. False philosophies. You start looking this stuff up on the internet, you're going to see everything in the whole wide world. It's going to blow your mind. False teaching is all this is. It's like a flood of false teaching. We want, what are they, fact checkers? They'd go crazy with this stuff. Why? Because everybody's got, they take some little idea and they just run with it. And they just go crazy with it. False teaching. So be careful out there. Who do you allow into your mind? And we allow, you just watch the news. That tells you everything you need to know. All right. That's pretty much what's going on here. Let's go on to chapter 13. We've got the two beasts here. The first beast is going to come up out of the sea. If you look at beast, this is the word for a wild animal, is what this beast is. And if you look on your cheat sheet, it's a power or institution, political or religious, which is hostile to God and his people. And we've got many examples on there. Domesticated animals represent God's people. And so it just depends on what kind of critter it is. These two beasts are definitely allies of Satan. Whatever else you understand about them, you don't have to wonder whose side are they on. All right? Let's read beginning in 13. Let's read this section down through 10. Revelation 13, beginning in verse 1. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, and 10 diadems on its horns, and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. One of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, and for he had given his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?" And the beast was given a mouth, uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. There it comes again. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. And it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. And authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. And all who dwell on the earth will worship it. And everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life, the Lamb who was slain. Anyone who has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain by the sword, with the sword he must be slain. Here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. So we've got these two beasts here in this chapter. Look at this first column, the allies, the beast in the sea. and then the land beast is going to be the false prophet. Yeah, that turned out all right. Sometimes you can't tell how it's going to look on the PowerPoint. How do they influence? With power and pressure. They're going to use anti-Christian political power. So these Roman emperors, you remember we've talked about them before, they knew that they would be deity after they died, so what did they think? Well, I must be deity now. And they would fashion themselves after the Greek gods. False trickery and false teaching and trickery, anti-Christian religion, that's that stream of water pouring forth out of his mouth. In John's day, this is the Roman emperor headed by the Roman Empire headed by the emperor. The concilia is the agency used to enforce emperor worship. They not only had shrines and altars and temples dedicated to the emperor worship. That's crazy for us today. Do we worship our president? No, we honor him and treat him like he's somebody really special, you know. Well, he's our president, right? We don't bow down and pinch incense into the altar. What do? Well, we give them honor and respect and that sort of thing. Is it the same? What's the difference? That's something to think about. Application in any age, what is it? We have intimidation, we have persecution, we have peer pressure. Constantly, we are bombarded by Satan and his schemes. See that for what it is. Don't let that overcome you. Don't feel overwhelmed by that. Why? We've got that candle against the darkness, and we're not influenced by it. We need to repel that. All right. Persecution today, different. Do you feel bold enough to stand up at your workplace, at your friends, at your family, and say, yes, I'm a Christian and I'm not embarrassed by that? Sometimes that's tough. Deception and false teaching and philosophies. Yeah, we've got that. Yeah, we deal with that so many times today. So it's two sides of the same coin, these two beasts is what this is. First beast, similar to the beast in Daniel 7. If you go back and you study Daniel, you see a lot of similarities, the apocalyptic language. There were separate beasts. Here, it's kind of all combined. 7 heads, 10 horns. Look at your cheat sheet. Don't let that overwhelm you. All the multiple heads, what does that mean? Very powerful. He is crafty. And that's what that's all about. Horns is your power. So he's very powerful. With 10 horns, that is worldly completeness. Insofar as the world is concerned, this guy, the Roman Empire, he controls everything. And this, of course, the Roman Empire personified. So this is a wild beast. He comes up from the sea. The idea of the sea is similar to the abyss. It goes down into the sea. We're never going to see it again. Of course, they didn't have deep diving equipment. They didn't know the sea even had a bottom. As far as they knew, it just went down forever. The bottomless pit. Same idea. This beast comes up out of it. 10 horns, 7 heads, 10 diadems on his horn. Look at the number on your cheat sheet. That tells you what the number means. It's complete insofar as worldliness. All right? Full power. The power, throne, authority comes from the dragon. And we know who the dragon is. That's Satan personified. Similar to the beast in Daniel 7, blasphemous names. What is blasphemy? That's not a word we use very often. It just means speaking against God. It sounds like something only kings. I always think of kings. Oh, it's blasphemy to speak against the king. Well, it's blasphemy to speak against God. And we think, well, that's just a high sin. I don't know anything about that. Anybody that speaks against God, it's blasphemy to do that. So this name, this beast, he's speaking against God, of course. Why? Because he's saying there are many gods, and I'm one of them. Imagine saying that. How much pride and arrogance would it take to say, yeah, I'm a god? That's beyond belief. Leopard, bear, lion emphasize ferocity and power and anti-Christian political power. This beast represents Imperial Rome and its 7 emperors. This is from Ruba Shelley, and he will go so far as to, name the, 7 heads are the individual emperors of Rome, and you can make this case. The 10 horns with their diadems are the various vassal rulers of the kingdom subject to Rome, and through whom Rome's international power was exercised. All of the Mediterranean, even up into Britain, over to India, Roman Empire. And, talk about international power. The names of blasphemy on the beast's 7 heads signify the divine titles claimed by various emperors for themselves. And, yeah, that makes a good case. That fits right in. So the idea of the one that was, look at verse 3 there, 13:3. I get my chapters mixed up. Do you do that? They worship the beast who is like the beast who can fight against it. Where's the mortal wound? That's what I'm looking for. One head had a mortal wound. The mortal wound was healed. What's that about? There's the idea of the Nero revividus myth, and there's a very common idea at the time that Nero, even though he had killed himself at one point, because his guards were about to come and kill him, so he didn't want that. He killed himself. Well, he didn't really die, is the idea. You know how rumors go, and he's going to come back. Well, after a while, he didn't come back. And so they said, well, he's over in, what's beyond India, Parthia. Is that I can't remember the name of that. It's like he's over there, and he's going to bring an army. And always that far eastern front, they were kind of afraid what was beyond the borders over there. And, yeah, Nero's got an army over there, and he's going to come back and take vengeance on us. And so that was kind of in the back of their mind because of this theory that they'd come up with. This may relate to that. I don't know. Might be. Best I can come up with. 42 months, there's our 3.5 years. You remember the month had 30 days. 30 times 3.5 years, 30 times 12, 3.5. All right. It just means it's gonna happen. It's gonna be a tough time. He was gonna exercise authority for this time. And we see that. And we've talked about the emperor worship. Now look at verse 8. Is this talking about predestination? And it sure sounds like it if you aren't careful. And you remember one of the rules for Bible interpretation that we've already talked about. Don't let some obscure passage contradict the plain teaching of other passages. And this is definitely an obscure passage. Let me read a quote from Roper. The book that we've been using a lot. Verse 8 has been used to try to prove predestination, the idea that before God ever made man, he foreordained that certain individuals would be saved and certain individuals would be lost. The Bible does teach that God has the right to save or condemn whoever he wishes. Also, that God foreordained that a certain type of individual, the obedient believer, would be saved, and that a certain type of individual, the unbeliever, would be lost. To go beyond that and teach that men have no part in determining whether they are saved or lost is to make the Bible contradict itself. All of the Bible, including Revelation, teaches that in the end, each person decides whether or not he will follow Jesus. What's he saying? God hasn't preordained individuals. You're saved and you're lost. But God has preordained groups. Those people that follow me, I'm going to save those guys. Those people that don't follow me, they're going to be lost. He decided that before the world began. It's kind of like before I got married, I thought in my mind, if I have kids, they're going to go to church. That was preordained. If I had any power, any influence at all on my kids, they were going to go to church. And so we never had the discussion, well, are we going to go to church today? That discussion was never come up. Why? It's preordained. It's already been decided. All right? God decided before he made heaven and earth, before he changed light on the first day, those people that follow me, they're going to be saved. Those people that don't follow me, those people are going to be lost. It is preordained. So now look at this. There in, what is that, verse 8. All who dwell on the earth will worship it, for everyone whose name has not been written who's not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life, the Lamb who was slain. Did God write some people's names in the book of life before he created the world? That's going to go against so many verses. Choose you this day whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. If choice is involved anywhere, that goes against the idea of predestination. And we could just do a whole lesson on that. You understand where we're going. You understand the principle, though. We decide. God votes for us. Satan votes against us. He's accusing us. Here's two paths. Which way are we going to go? And we make that choice every day. If there's any choice at all, it's not predestined. All right, is the idea. And we could just go on and on about that. I think you get the idea. All right, verse 11. We're going to have the second beast. Let's read 11 through the end of the chapter. Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had two horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. It performed great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people, and by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on the earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so the image of the beast might even speak, and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. And it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is, the name of the beast, the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of man, and his number is 666. Wow, what's going on here? We've already talked, you already know where this is going. This is the people that said to worship the beast. They were forcing people to worship the emperor. And if you don't worship the emperor, you're going to die. Very simple. You must be a rebel. You're causing trouble. You're making trouble for the rest of the town. If you don't worship the beast, every disaster that happens, every time we don't get rain, it's your fault. The gods are punishing us. And we got to get rid of you, is the idea. And if you don't go to the market and pinch the incense and drop it on the altar and say, Dominus et Deus, Caesar is Lord, you don't get the mark that shows that you've worshipped the beast. All right? That's the emperor, or Rome, all the political power. This is going to hurt you economically if you don't worship the beast. It's going to hurt you physically if you don't worship the beast. It's going to say, if you don't do this, you can't buy bread for your family in the market. You can't take care of your kids. It's going to hurt. And that's what's happening here. He has two horns like a lamb. It's religion. There's two horns there. He's got some power. It's not complete power. Why? The complete power is with the dragon. And he's giving these two beasts his power, his authority. It's speaking like the dragon. All right? When these people that push this, they're talking, they want to appear like a lamb, but it's the dragon that's actually talking, isn't it? They did great signs. They did, we're calling them on fire. Magicians can do these things. Do I know how they do it? I do not. Penn and Teller do amazing magic tricks. What's the difference between a magician and a person that uses this to say, hey, I've got this power from God? Well, it's motive. How are you ascribing the power? They know it's a magician's trick. I can't make fire appear out of nowhere. What's the difference? It's motive. It's how you explain it. You get a good magician, they can say, oh, that's a trick, and I can reproduce that. And that was true way back in Egypt with Moses. And the magicians could reproduce some of his tricks. After a while, they said, we don't know what's going on here. And it's true today. The same thing. They give breath to the image. They have found images where there's cavities inside. People would go in there and they would speak for that idol. They would have words coming out of that idol. So it appears that the idol is speaking. The mark of the beast is just the opposite of those that were sealed. You remember the 7 seals? Before we do that last seal, I want to make sure my people are safe. God separates his people and gives them the seal. This is the opposite of that. This is the mark of the beast. So don't let... People have gone crazy with this. I remember when the symbols, what do they call that? The barcodes came out. Oh, that's the mark of the beast. And you hear that all the time. People are making up things. Oh, don't buy things with that mark on it. It's the mark of the beast. Well, not so much. Just means that he's been claimed by the beast. Anyone that doesn't worship the Lamb of God gets the mark of the beast. Later on, we're going to see a scythe which is a handheld blade. He's going to be wiping things out. And why? I don't have to worry about these guys. They have the mark of the beast. I don't have to cull out the good guys. These are all the bad guys. What's happening here? God's going to win. God's enemies are going to be punished. We don't have to worry about that. What do we have to do? We have to hang on. Keep going until we die is all it is. Thank you, guys. That's where we'll start, Lord willing, next week.